Dustin.
Hello, Hooper.
I just spoke to you like you were like 4. Hi, Dustin.
And I spoke to you like I was a 1930s radio man. Hello, Hooper.
Hello, Hooper.
Hello, Hooper.
So today we've got just some stuff to kind of discuss. We talk about what we have watched, but we hardly ever talk about what we are watching, what's in progress for us.
Yeah.
So I've got a boatload of stuff I'm watching all at once. But what have you got going on?
Well, I'm watching a few shows. I don't tend to whenever I start one, I like to finish it before I move on. So I never have a huge load of things that I'm watching all at the same time, except for what's currently on television. So that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about. But so right now I'm watching Arrow and The Flash. I've talked about both of those on the show before. Mm-hmm. Better Call Saul. I think there's only one episode left of this season.
Are you all caught up on that?
I am. I'm all caught up to now.
I'm watching that too. I just watched the 5th one, the only one that doesn't end in O. It's like Alpine like
Shepherd Boy,
but all the rest are like Nacho, Mijo, Hero,
right? Pimento,
Pimento, yeah. So I just watched Alpine Shepherd Boy, and I think the next one, 106, episode 6, is all about Mike.
Yes.
So I'm pretty excited to watch that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm working my way back. So anyway, yeah. So Better Call Saul.
Yeah. I'm also... Now, I flirted with the idea. I can't remember whether or not I said anything about it on the podcast, but I flirted with the idea of quitting The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. But found my way back in. Yeah, found my way back in. And I just finished the season last night. I'm a little bit behind just because I was not very interested. But you know what? Let me just say this real quick before I keep going. I'm gonna say right now that I'm not gonna watch the next season, but I know I will because why not? I mean, I don't know,
right?
Whatever. But their season finales are always so weak to me. So anyway, Walking Dead. What have I said so far? Flash, Arrow, Walking Dead.
Yeah, well, I'm watching. I'll let me point out too. I was kind of with you in solidarity. I was like, well, if Dustin's going to quit, I'll quit. And at the same time, like we talked about how we didn't like the episode where what's his face, Tyrese. We always talk about how in that episode we hated, and that's about where you said you were stopped watching, and I moved the weekend after that, so I didn't have AMC.
Right.
And I also changed television providers, so when I actually was up and running again, I found out that they don't have a streaming contract with AMC.com, so I couldn't even go back and watch them. So I was going to quit just because I fell behind. And then someone said, oh, they're running a marathon on Saturday before the finale, and so I DVR'd that. So I'm that's where I left off. I'm going to try and catch up. So and the same for me. Like if I had to... If I had to go one extra mile further to get the show, I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I pay for cable already, so I may as well just DVR it and let it come to me, you know?
Right.
And just put it on a low priority. Like if I have something else my DVR I'm trying to get to, I'll watch that before The Walking Dead.
Right. The thing is, The Walking Dead, I mean, it's okay, mindless entertainment, but it's not highbrow. It's not really important to watch. It's not going to teach you anything about filmmaking, so it's just low on my list of things to do. For me, like, there are 3 people I see every day at work who do watch it, and I sort of watch it so I can feel like they can talk about it without bothering me. Well, and see, the thing is, it's so strange that there are 2 shows on the CW that I would rather watch than a show on AMC.
Yeah, about zombies and survival.
Yeah, which should be like super high on my list, but it's not. And so there's just something wrong with it. And you and I have talked in depth about what it is, and I still think that, you know, all of those things are true. I just think that, you know, there's something else that's just turning me off, and I can't quite even put my finger on what it is. But it just feels like a waste of time sometimes.
Yeah.
I also started Bloodline on Netflix. That's a Netflix original. It came out a couple of weeks ago, I believe. It stars Kyle Chandler. This one was not as like promoted as something like House of Cards or whatever. So I think a lot of people probably don't know about it. But I'm a big fan of Kyle Chandler, and I love Friday Night Lights, and so I figured I'd give it a shot. And Linda Cardellini is also in it, and Sam Shepard.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's got a great cast, and Sissy Spacek, and all of these people that are actually really, really talented, and then a few unknowns as well. At least they're unknown to me, and it's an interesting show. It's not going to be one that you're going to like for me anyway. I don't think it's going to be one that I'm just going to turn on when I'm like bored, because it's a little depressing and a little slow, so I kind of have to be in the mood for it. So I feel like it's going to take me a while to get through it, but I'm not disinterested. It has a really, really gripping pilot, which, despite it being slow, is introducing us to some really cool characters and really interesting concepts. So even though the pacing is a little, maybe outdated even, I feel like all of that kind of makes up for it. So I'll continue with the show. And then aside from that, there's really not much else that I'm watching scripted, as far as scripted television goes. Or, really reality either, but, there's stuff like Shark Tank and stuff, which I enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
But again, that's sort of a, kind of a guilty pleasure kind of thing, not anything that I'm going to learn filmmaking from.
Oh, you don't have to feel guilty about Shark Tank, man. That show rules.
Dude, Shark Tank is awesome.
Yeah. It's, yeah. So,
there's all of that. There's a few shows that I'd still like to check out. And The Last Man on Earth, I started watching. I have not gone any further since you and I talked about it, Hooper.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I'm going to necessarily stop either. Which, by the way, I heard Will Forte was dating January Jones. Just a little thing there.
Wow.
I thought that was a little mind-blowing.
One of these things is not like the other.
I know, right?
And there are only two things in front of us.
And there's only two things. They're so not like each other. But,
not if you were the last man on Earth. And he said, well, the thing about that is...
That's generally what's on my plate these days. Like I said, stuff like Bloodline, I'll probably watch through that before I start something else. But everything else is still currently on television, so, I feel okay about watching several of them that are still going. But I did hear Bloodline got renewed for a second season, so so yeah, there's that. What are you watching these days, Hoop?
Well, we already talked about Better Call Saul and The Walking Dead. By the time this episode comes out, I will be watching Mad Men. I'll be watching the part 2 of the final season of that show, which at the time of this recording, I'm really looking forward to. And it's weird. That's one of those shows that I always thought was I sort of got on board because John was watching it in college. And I always thought, well, John likes Mad Men. We like the same kind of things. So I just sort of, I didn't watch it until we were out of college. And I have the first 5 seasons on Blu-ray. I've seen, season 6 and I like season 7. And it's one of those shows where I think I stuck with it because I was like, people like this. And I have to be honest, I didn't really understand why. And I still kind of don't understand why I like it, because I'm not into the whole, the culture. I understand there's cultural subtext and comparing the 60s with today and how people are, and just human nature in a different setting. Sometimes I just figured, why do I like this? If someone asked me why I like this show, what would I say? And I finally sort of landed on, I just like watching human behavior in a different setting or in a particular distinct setting.
Sure.
Some people are like, because of you want to see, some people like to watch Mad Men, I think, because they like to shake their fingers at sexism or male dominance or stuff. Sure. That does not interest me at all. I don't care. Right. I don't need a show to make me feel superior for, thinking women are equal to me. So
yeah, exactly.
Hooray for all of us. Yay. I watch the show because I like to watch good camera work and great sets and good acting and sophisticated writing. And a show that really doesn't spoon feed you anything at all.
Yeah.
And that's what, and I think I watch it because it challenges me. And I realized looking back on the whole show, this is a very rewatchable show. Like when you look back at sort of the journey everyone takes, even if you're not interested in the characters that much, just the plot of being at the agency and then breaking off and making the new agency and then getting bought by another agency and then now looks like they want to break free from that agency and start their own thing. So it's like, it's just kind of cool to watch the plot. And I enjoy watching these characters. I enjoy watching John Hamm. So I'm excited for these final episodes, and it'll just, this was AMC's flagship original series. This is before Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead. So, it's cool to see it sort of wrap up, and it's an appropriate length, I think. And, I'm excited to finish that. I didn't really think I'd speak about it that long, but, that's
fine.
I'm excited about it.
That's one that I never got into. I did watch the pilot, and it was one of those that I was like, this just didn't grip me enough to move on at right now. It was on Netflix, so I could have just watched the second one, but it wasn't gripping enough to do that, and I just never haven't gotten back around to it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's all,
and the weird thing is, a lot of it is like what you're talking about. Like when I talk to people about Mad Men, most of the people who watch it can't really give me a good reason to start watching it.
I know what you mean. Like, no one has a good sales pitch. Like, well, here's a ton of good reasons. Like, you can't really sell Mad Men. Ironically, it's about advertising. Like, it's hard to, it's hard to sell it. Like,
yeah.
But I don't know. It's just, or it's probably, maybe it's one of the greatest Pavlovian tricks in television history, where everyone, they insist to you that you like it, and you're like, you're right, I like it. Like, I don't know. What I'm doing right now is I realize there's lots of shows I didn't see or I watched and didn't follow up on. So what I'm trying to do now is finish up everything I started, which is a wide array of shows. But I also decided that I wanted to keep up with current shows better. Because before I was going to attack them, I made like a whole list. And I was like, okay, I'm going to, when I finish one show, and I'm going to power through a show that's been out the longest. And then I thought, well, that's really a really daunting and arduous task of, I want to watch The Good Wife. Like, I have a whole list of shows that are still on the air, and The Good Wife is the one that's been on the longest of all those shows. But I also thought I will feel no progress trying to watch 5 seasons of The Good Wife, and I'm not going to do myself any service as a viewer by trying to rush through it just so I can sort of get through it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go with the most recent thing with the least amount of episodes and get current on that, because then I can actually keep up with it when it does get back on the air. So it's a combination of catching up with shows I started and taking on new shows. That's why I watched BoJack Horseman and Kimmy Schmidt, because they were coming out one season, easy. Now I'm caught up. And I'll be ready when the next season drops. So in terms of current TV shows, I believe maybe even by the time this episode drops, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will have finished its second season. But maybe I'm not sure when that happens. But I'm watching season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. If not, just to keep up with these characters who will, I'm sure, inevitably be in the Marvel movies at some point. So it's entertaining enough. I watch it while I pay bills, so it's, I'm not really interested in any of the character stuff. I'm purely interested in plot with that show. I just, when they're talking, I sort of just tune out and, balance my checkbook. Like when I hear a punch, I look up and then, I see what's happening. Because honestly, that's really the only important thing on that show right now is plot that relates to the greater universe. Sure. I don't really care, the relationship between Coulson and Agent May and how it might shift, unless it relates to plot or motivations. Sure. I do look up every time Adrian Palicki's on screen. But that's
for a different reason.
That's unrelated to the show itself.
Yes.
So
it always is.
Yeah. I've also gotten on to Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
I love that.
I'm
show.
a late addition to that show, but I've watched the past 3, and I decided I wouldn't catch up with that show because it's pointless to catch up with a show that's about current events.
Right.
So as much as I wanted to see all the jokes, I just thought, no, I'm not gonna make myself do that. So I think that airs on Sundays, right?
Yes,
I'm not able to watch it until the following Saturday.
Oh yeah,
because of just my schedule. So
sure,
I I'm like 6 days behind a show that's a week behind its content. So, but it's still fun to watch, and it's nice and short and very well presented. Mm-hmm. Usually with a few. I mean, the format. It's like a few current events, and then it's like one like longer investigative piece.
Right.
And so I like the news format from a relatively unbiased point of view.
Yeah.
Since it's comedy, it's more brutally honest. So even if you don't quite agree with what they're saying, they've uncovered facts, and if you don't like the spin, you can still like the joke.
Exactly. That's what I like about it. I just think he's super funny. Like, his staff of writers really, really nails it every week.
Well, and I thought I'd be sort of offended by a British guy telling America what's wrong with it.
Sure.
And so in principle I am, because it's like, we won the war. But again, it doesn't matter. Right, it's comedy. So
it's just funny.
It's just a guy making an observation and calling it like he sees it. So I can always respect that, and I've been catching up on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, everything that's on Netflix. Mm-hmm. And that's a show I only watch on my phone, like before I go to bed. I get home, my wife's asleep, and so I just power through an episode real quick, or I'll watch it in the morning while I'm eating breakfast. I'm trying to be quiet. It's just that's another show you don't have to just sit and pay attention to. You can watch that, but it's better if you do though. So I've been catching up on that too, and everything else I've got is it's just waiting to come back on. Again, by the time this episode drops, I'll probably be in the middle of Daredevil on Netflix. I'll be keeping up with Silicon Valley and Game of Thrones on HBO. And everything else that I'm sort of watching or trying to get through is going to take a backseat to make sure I catch up on everything else first. But I'm getting through a lot of content. Oh, and I've also, in terms of stuff that's off the air, I'm trying to keep going with Friday Night Lights. I say trying not because the show's not good. It's because it has a lot of episodes. It's 5 seasons, but it's 76 episodes of television of 45-minute episodes. Yeah. So I do like the show. I can't really watch more than 1.5 at a time. But it's a good show. I mean, speaking of Kyle Chandler and Adrian Palicki. So that's a good show, and I'm trying to get through it because I started it, and I'm just trying to consolidate. But I'm trying not to rush that show either. Like, I'll watch one, and then I'll go on to something else. And if I sit there and think, you know what, I want to see the next one, I'll do it. But I don't force it. That's what I did with The Shield. I forced myself to binge watch that show, and that was tough. It was just tough.
Yeah.
That's one of the shows that I should have been on the ground floor. But, when it came on TV, I was like 11, so it was impossible.
Right.
So, yeah. That's all I'm kind of currently watching
gotcha.
On TV. So, yeah.
Sounds good. It's a good list.
Dustin, you had a topic you wanted to discuss.
Yeah. So Disney has announced a few live-action films coming up, and we've seen a couple of them already, or I guess about 3 of them. It all started with Tim Burton directing Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Which I never saw.
If you can call it directing.
Yeah. Tim Burton putting his name on a thing that was mostly CG.
Tim Burton making a film called Alice in Wonderland, vaguely based on Alice in Wonderland, the book.
Right. And more based on like an acid trip he had once. Okay, so it started with Alice in Wonderland, and then it continued with Maleficent. Again, I never saw Maleficent. And then it has now continued with what's in theaters right now, which is Disney's Cinderella, which is directed by Kenneth Branagh. These 3 films have actually been very insanely popular. I mean, you would think like Maleficent. I don't really, other than John, I don't know anybody who actually saw that film.
Me.
You did?
Yeah, I talked about it on the best of when John was talking about how much he hated it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. All right, so you guys have seen Maleficent.
Yeah.
Well, other than y'all, I don't know anybody else who has seen it. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, I remember that movie from the previews, and that's about it. Yeah. But it did really well overseas. And enough so that Disney was like, great, keep it going, do more, let's just keep going. And so next year, in April, Jon Favreau has his version of The Jungle Book coming out. Again, live action, starring Bill Murray as Baloo and Idris Elba as Shere Khan, which admittedly sounds okay, but again, you're just kind of pilfering ideas and concepts and titles from old things and making them somewhat maybe new a little bit. But those two voices alone kind of makes you think that they're just going to kind of follow the footsteps of what was done in their animated thing. And then beyond that, in 2017, we will get Beauty and the Beast, which is directed by Bill Condon, and it stars Emma Watson as Belle. I believe Josh Gad is playing LeFou, which is actually the most perfect casting I've ever heard in my entire life.
That's really good.
Yeah, it is.
Josh Gad annoys the piss out of me, but that's a good casting.
I really don't like him, but he looks just like that freaking cartoon character that you're supposed to think is ugly.
It's true, Gaston.
It is true.
Yeah. God, that's good voice casting, but that's also good physical. Wow,
it is.
Bravo.
It's like the best of both worlds here.
Yeah.
So anyway, Disney's making Beauty and the Beast. They've then announced that the following year, 2018, Tim Burton will be directing a live-action version of Dumbo.
Oh, dear.
Which
what the hell?
Makes no sense. I mean, okay, sure. I don't know why Tim Burton. That's so strange to me. This is just a little bit of an aside here. I can understand getting Tim Burton for Alice in Wonderland because it's, whatever. It can be interpreted creepy and gothic and whatnot. So, okay, sure, I can kind of get that. But Dumbo, this sweet, heartfelt, sentimental kind of thing, why would you be like, oh, Tim Burton would be great for this? I don't get it. Mm-hmm. There's also a remake in progress of Pete's Dragon, which is not originally an animated film, although it is partially animated. They are remaking that. They announced a few days ago that there will be a version of there's not a release date yet but a live action version of Mulan. And then today they've announced a live action version of Winnie the Pooh.
What?
So
how can you even call that live action when all the characters are anthropomorphic animals?
Yeah.
That's barely live action.
Exactly.
I can understand Mulan because at least all the characters are human beings.
Yes,
and
except
Mushu?
For the dragon and Mushu and
Mushu
the little
should just be Eddie Murphy as a person. Like
that would be amazing.
The only black guy in Asia.
Yeah, in just like a red
kimono.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. He's in a kimono the whole time as a Fu Manchu. Like
but I can understand. Mulan's the only one of those that makes the most sense to me. The rest of them have no business being live action at all.
I mean, I can understand Beauty and the Beast because it was originally, that's been adapted and readapted and readapted and readapted. So another version of that, if they go back to the source material, that original La Belle et la Bête, French storybook,
right,
and readapt that would be okay. But they've already said that Emma Watson is taking vocal lessons to sing the songs that were in the 1990s.
Wait, she's Belle?
Yeah, she's Belle.
Huh.
So she will be singing the songs that we all know and love. So the question is, why even do it? If you're just going to redo what you've already done, you're not going back and doing, okay, this is the version without the songs, or whatever. If you're just going to remake the animated feature, why bother? The Jungle Book, that's another one that's going to have music in it. So, if they're doing the bare necessities, why not just go watch the original? Like, it doesn't make sense. Just re-release it and put it out on the theaters again. It doesn't really cost you anything. They did that a few years ago with The Lion King. Just put it out in 3D and there you go. And then so let's go through the list one more time real quick. Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, Dumbo, Mulan, Pete's Dragon, and Winnie the Pooh.
What the hell is Pete's Dragon?
Pete's Dragon was a movie, I believe, from like the 80s or so. But it was or maybe it was the late 70s. either way, it's about a little boy who finds a dragon, and the dragon is animated in that classic Disney style. So it's a little bit like Who Framed Roger Rabbit in that regard. But the thing is, I don't know that there was anybody out there who was like, we need another Pete's Dragon. Where's the reboot? Mm-hmm. I just don't understand the point behind it. And I mean, Hooper, you just had to ask me what it was.
Yeah.
So if the 20-year-olds don't know what it is, then the 11-year-olds that they're going to market to certainly don't know what it is.
Pete's Dragon sounds like an adult film.
It does. You are correct. But yeah, man, the thing is, I just want to get your opinion. I mean, what do you think about Disney doing all of these films? Like I said, there's 6 upcoming live-action adaptations of original animated films, and then also we've already had 3 at this point. So what do you think about 9 total films that are just remakes, essentially? I guess Maleficent wasn't really a remake. I don't really know. But what do you think about this phenomenon?
Maleficent was essentially a remake,
like a retelling
from her perspective, and
sure.
I don't know how much. I don't know if there is any source material on Sleeping Beauty or not, but it was essentially like they gave her a reason for being evil and all this other like world building stuff and redemption story, which kind of works, just in a way the wrong context. But I understand that the studio needs to make money. I feel like they're just sort of giving themselves a safety net in case all their original stuff doesn't work out, if they have any original stuff. But I mean, you got 9 films coming out that are rehashes. They're not even rehashes of books. It's your movies that you're adapting. And
pretty much.
It's a little narcissistic, I guess, but it's at your disposal. So financially, this all makes sense to me. So let's just go and put that aside, so that no one else comes and says, "Well, it's a business." I'm the first one to argue it's a business.
We understand that.
I get it. And frankly, that's the only excuse they need, because honestly, it's their business, not yours. So
sure. I guess the more poignant question is, creatively, what does this look like for Disney? Going forward. See, as much as Frozen irritates me, at least it was an original idea. Yeah. So that's better for. I don't. The line between creative and business decisions is becoming more and more. I don't know if it's more blurred or less blurred. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's hard for me to see a movie these days and go, wow, like that. This like a purely that's a story that had to be told. That's a story that had to be told, or this was not motivated by money at all, kind of a thing. So I'm not surprised that I feel cynical about that. I'm also not an anti-corporate whatever, because businesses have to make profits. So, and movies are just products. As much as everyone wants to get all altruistic about films, they're products, and they want to make movies that you enjoy, but they really just care that you see them. And they started to figure out about 10 years ago or so that people will go to the movies and their expectations are pretty low. So with all these films, it's like people will come out because they recognize it. But creatively it shows me they've got nothing. They have no ideas. And I don't know what they're doing, because I don't know if they just have no creative meetings anymore, or if people are not coming to them with original ideas, or but one way or the other, somebody is in charge who's going it's too much of a risk, or there's too many lawyers involved, or they're no one's taking chances. And I don't know if it's because they're really just trying to protect their bottom line. I don't know if they get one strike and they're fired, and so they're just trying to cover their ass and protect their job, or what. But for some reason, somebody in charge is not willing to take risks with the studio or their money and put their name on something that turned out to be a flop. But and that'll work it'll take many decades before the public figures that out and loses respect for them. But by then, all those people will die, and you'll have a new crop of people who want your stuff no matter what. So
that business model is pretty self-sustaining to me. Just the unfortunate downside is people like us who want to see good films come from people. Disney is very capable of making great films, but just nothing they're putting out is quite original for the most part. And so, like you're saying, so that's the long answer to your question of, what does this mean creatively? It means nothing creatively because there is no creativity in it. Yeah. Maybe you can get somebody who can put a different spin, and you can market it like it's different. You can insist it's different. But by now, we're all so used to them saying, no, but it's a fresh adaptation. And it never is. That's what they said about, a lot of like the first person was, the first time this happened that I can remember was when the Writers of Lost were like, don't worry, all your questions will be answered. And they weren't.
Yeah.
And in their shoes, it's like, well, what were we supposed to say? We're supposed to tell them what they don't want to hear?
Right.
Well, it would be nice if you had, some balls and were prepared to not just spoon feed me what I want. And then it came from J.J. Abrams saying, oh, Khan's not in the movie. Oh, and it's totally Khan. And so everyone just figured out, well, just tell them what they want to hear till they see it. And by the time they figured out that we lied to them, we already had their money.
Right.
So you can tell me all day long that this stuff is fresh adaptations and a fresh spin, but I don't trust you. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
That was a little bit long-winded, but you understand my point? Like
I do. And I agree with you. The creativity isn't there, and the whole justification of it is a sham, because the real reason is we know that a 40-year-old parent will go take a child to Winnie the Pooh before they'll take them to, some original thing that nobody's heard of.
And that's the thing. From the parents' perspective, they know that Winnie the Pooh is safe. They know it's not going to shove like a weird social message down their kid's throat. They are familiar with the characters, so they feel safe. And you're right. I think what you're trying to say is it's a two-way street. Like the consumers aren't willing to take a risk. Like the studios won't take a risk on originality because they know audiences won't, or they think audiences won't.
Yeah, this is true. But it's a double-edged sword there too, because I think audiences would take chances because throughout history they always have.
Yeah.
The problem is we're only making it so that like, okay, it's either Winnie the Pooh or some off-brand knockoff, cheaply made, cheaply animated, kind of annoying kind of kids movie. So of course they're going to pick what's safe. So the problem is that not only, like, I don't think it's necessarily that the parents won't go see something original. I think it's that we're putting more marketing money behind the things that aren't original.
Which is weird because unoriginal stuff self-markets. Like, if anything, brand recognition should be cheaper to market.
Exactly.
Because you don't have to introduce them to a new idea.
Exactly. But I think the problem is that parents, I feel like, like, let's look at something. The first thing that comes to my mind is like Rio, right? Yeah. There's a film called Rio. It came out a few years ago, and I guess it did okay because it got a sequel, or it's getting one or something. And anyway, I don't know. Did that already come out? Who knows? Yeah,
Rio 2 is out. Yeah.
It is? Okay. See, I didn't even know. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. Like, the more original things, nobody knows. They come and they go. And so I think that they underestimate people. Like, people would go see that if they knew that it existed, and if that they put time and effort into it. But the problem is, you're right, the consumers are only going with what they know, and the people that are making the decisions are only giving them what they want. And even though some of those slip out, like Rio or like Frozen or whatever it may be, the problem behind the whole thing is that the general idea is we just want the money. It doesn't really matter the product. Yeah. So then the parents get jaded when they go see something original and it's not good, because it doesn't have to be good, because it's just for kids and that's the only thing out. If we put it out in March, there won't be another option for parents to take their kids to go see a movie. So therefore we'll go see it, we'll hate it, and then we won't go see the next one. And we'll just stick with the Winnie the Poohs from now on.
Yeah.
So it's all cyclical, but I think the tragedy of the whole thing is that it weeds out original ideas and only, like, it favors things that are based on source material, which for a superhero fan like myself is fine, and I don't have a problem with source material and
Right.
things being adapted and whatnot. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that when Disney announces a slate of 6 films based on things that already were successful in their original forms, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand what Jon Favreau can do with this Jungle Book that the original failed at.
Yeah.
Like, what can he do? I know Rudyard Kipling's original novel was a little different than what Disney made, but the original Jungle Book is a classic, and what can he do? What can Jon Favreau add to or take away from the original Jungle Book film to, make it worth my while? And that's where I'm at. And I know that Beauty and the Beast is using the same music from the original film or from the Disney classic. So why would I go see this when I already have that one on Blu-ray? If I had that, I would just watch that. I would put that in. It's free. It's already paid for. I'm done. The story is the same. Girl falls in love with ugly person, and then his true beauty comes out. That's the story. And they're not going to change that. So why go see it?
Yeah.
It's frustrating to me to see things like this, right, that come out. And even if it's not an original idea, like, let's look at another adaptation, right, John Carter. They put a lot of money and a lot of effort into John Carter, and it underperformed. But that's because Disney had their fingerprints all over it, saying, no, it can't say of Mars.
Yeah.
It can't be this. It can't be that. We have to market it cleverly. And they did everything wrong in the marketing of that film and just kind of weeded it out before it had a chance. But I would much rather see a sequel to John Carter than any of these 6 that I mentioned. Not because the Jungle Book isn't a classic, but because I've already seen it and it's already good. So that's where I'm coming from. Like, there's just so much more that they could be spending their money on. And between these 6 movies, do you have any idea how much money that Disney will shell out for these 6 films?
God.
A lot of freaking money. And they could make a lot of movies that are a lot better. Or maybe not a lot better. I don't want to say that these movies aren't going to be good. What I want to say is that these movies have already been made and were already successful. Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast, Dumbo. Everybody loves them. So why remake them?
It's weird. It's just it's too safe. Like I'm very free enterprise and like let the market decide whatever. And with films is the only thing where I take like a half exception where it's like, but from the artistic point of view, you want a studio that's going to give new people with new ideas a chance to to tell a story, and so there's just no integrity. Again, excluding the business side because we're not talking about that. There's no integrity in a studio that's just going to pump out stuff that we already know about and that we're already familiar with. It's lazy and it's too safe, and you don't really respect a studio that does that. With the majority of its budget and its marketing and all its resources. Exactly.
And if you look at it from a consumer's point of view, why would I spend my hard-earned $12.50, which is what movies are now, by the way, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But why would I spend my $12.50 to go see The Jungle Book? I already have it. I already know how it ends, and they're not going to change it. It's not going to end differently this time. Shere Khan's not going to win.
Yeah.
So why would I do that? So for me, that's my thing. I'm the same way, Hooper. I agree with everything you're saying about business and the way that the market should work.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem is when. Like, okay, Snuggies get really popular. So then 8 billion Snuggie brands come out of the woodworks.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, like, to me, that makes sense. It's popular. Let's get on the bandwagon now. You know what I mean? But with the movies, it shouldn't be that way. The movies, to me, should be about not what is popular and how can we ape its success. It should be, what can we be doing to push filmmaking forward as a medium, as an art form? What can we be doing to tell stories, at the very least, what can we be doing to tell stories that will entertain and give people an escape for an hour and a half from their daily lives? And that, to me, is what's missing, because all of these films are already on my shelf and already can give me that escape.
Right, exactly.
So
I don't go to the movies to see stuff I already know about.
exactly.
I go to see new stuff.
Right.
Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and put this one to bed.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see everybody next week.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, dog. All right.
Yeah, dog.
See you guys later.
Peace. What's happening?
I'm sorry.
What's happening?
I don't know.
I see you, Hooper.
I didn't know you were here.
No. Now I really don't want to know what's happening.